Hello, welcome once again to 1.1 Song. My name's Elliot Porter, and I'm here this week to talk to another fantastic singer-songwriter about the songs that they write and also about a cover song that they've carefully collected, which may have influenced them or maybe they just love it. If you're listening on audio, hello. This podcast goes out on audio about 2 days later than it goes out live on Facebook and YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, hello, and please subscribe. Help us grow the channel. It's Elliot Porter Music, and if you want to see any of the other episodes, type into 1.1 Song, and that will bring them up. They're also all available on Spotify, Anchor FM, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thank you for coming along, as ever. I hope you're all enjoying your week so far. Today again, I always seem to say it on these Wednesdays. It's normally a pretty dreary day, but hopefully that won't be lasting too much longer as we go into springtime. As ever, if you've got any questions, we really welcome the questions. We love having audience questions, so just chuck them in the comments section, and I will do my best to read them as we go, and I will put them to our guest. And if there's any you want me to answer, just put them in there as well. Or if you just want to say hello or throw us some random abuse if you want to, or jokes, do that as well. So it's nice to get the comments kind of section going because it makes the show kind of more lively. And if anyone's listening afterwards, obviously you won't be able to see the comments, but I will read them out as much as I can, as long as they're pretty clean. So I'm really happy. This is the 5th episode of 1.1 Song. I'm really happy today to be welcoming a chap who I haven't actually seen for a long time, but we did a few gigs together, at least 1 or 2 gigs together a few years ago, and he's another fantastic piano player and songwriter. And again, another example of someone who I just love. I love his songwriting. I love the kind of atmosphere it creates. So I thought, where better to have a chat than this podcast, 1.1 Song. So without further ado, I will introduce you to our guest this week. This is a man who's known as the Piano Troubadour. Travels around playing his beautiful music wherever he goes. So please welcome Michael Keithson. Hey Michael, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you getting me on this. I've seen a couple of the other ones you've done with some really great performers. I'm just wondering if you're scraping the barrel already with me on.
Far from it. Far from it. You're when I started to do this podcast, I wrote down a long list of like great singer-songwriters that I remember playing with over, I don't know, however long I've been playing, probably about 10 years. And you were on the list, so you're in that exalted company. And
Fantastic. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. And how are you doing? How are you doing in this strange time of COVID?
I'm doing all right, really. As well as I could be, really. My main job hasn't changed too much. I've been able to work throughout the pandemic, albeit more at home now than before. But my health is good, my family's good. I actually moved house at the end of last year, which was exciting and somewhat stressful.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I'm all good, really. What about yourself?
As it happens to be, always moving house is stressful, isn't it? Yeah. I'm okay actually, to be honest. Again, yeah, I haven't been able to work an awful lot due to COVID, but I've managed to do a lot more online things and a lot more remote work. And I've been getting into my remote kind of recording. Just mainly piano tracks and things for people.
Nice.
Because it's been a good opportunity to do that and kind of learn a few new techniques and things like that. And but as with everyone, I'm kind of looking with one eye towards April, May, June time, when hopefully we might be able to go out and do a couple of gigs. I know you said you, like me, you managed to squeeze in a couple of gigs last year. Did you?
Yeah, when the weather was nice and the pubs were allowed people in the gardens, I managed to get a few sort of jazz gigs in there, which was really nice. I was just getting to the point of like really itchy feet of like, I need to get out and play some music with some people. I've not played music with anybody in a room for a long time. And that kind of came just at the right time. We managed to get probably maybe even half a dozen gigs in different sort of pub gardens and stuff. But now it's been another while since that's happened, so I'm kind of at the same point again, itching to get in a room with some other people and just make some music.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, and it's one of those things, isn't it? When it first came around, I kind of enjoyed the break, but yeah, then I kind of got itchy feet, and I wanted to kind of get back out there, and I think we're reaching that point again now.
That's it. There's so much, it's a good opportunity to sort of, like you said, get your own recording stuff doing and get maybe working on stuff in the house. But I think a big part of my enjoyment is playing music with other people, and there's only so much you can do in your sort of spare bedroom to satisfy that. And I think that I'm getting to the point now where I'm like just desperate to get out.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I am completely in agreement with that. So as ever, I will bring people's comments up as they come if I see them. If there's any questions that people have, we'll put them to you as well. And have you got a drink today? I've got a drink. It's 1.1 song, but it can be any drink.
I do have a drink. I'm not much of a drinker. I've never really enjoyed sort of beer or wine or anything, but I don't mind a gin and tonic. So
excellent.
I've got myself a gin with a lime in there as well. So
excellent. Excellent. That's becoming quite a popular choice actually for the podcast. I think James Sayer he had a gin, I think, when he came on. So
good choice.
It's always a good choice. So we've got a couple of comments here.
What about your drink, Elliot?
Well, I'm actually this week I'm not actually drinking. But I found a very nice like non-alcoholic beer, which actually tastes just like a beer. So it's pretty good. Yeah, it's an Adnam's ghost ship. So.
I hear, like, I've never really, like I said, I've not really quite a taste for sort of beer or lager, but a lot of people talk very highly about Adnams.
It's very nice actually, and it's a Suffolk brewery.
It's in Southwold, isn't it?
Southwold, yeah, that's it. And I'd love to go to Southwold. I've never made it. No, and I love their beer, so it would make sense.
It's a really gorgeous place. It's like a really sort of posh seaside town. Like even the co-op is really high class.
Oh wow! Oh yeah, a good high class co-op. Excellent. No, I'll have to check that out. So we've got a couple of comments so far. Evening, Elliot. It's Julian. Happy New Year to you. I think. Good luck with the musicians interviews as well. Thank you, Julian. Happy New Year to you. I'm guessing you're celebrating it a little bit later than everyone else, but I guess it is kind of New Year. Evening both, fab to see you guys chatting together. Again, I can't actually see the names of some people that comment, so I'm just going to say hello and let me know your name if it comes up. Yes to a G&T. So G&T is a popular choice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you do kind of jazz gigs. Is that with a jazz kind of ensemble, or is that just kind of on your own?
Yeah, it's with the group. I play jazz with a few people. So I play with a group based in the sort of Stamford area, where it's like a piano, bass, drums trio, and then we have a singer. And then I play with another band sort of based in Kettering way, which is more of a sort of a Latin jazz band. There's my camera gone?
We seem to have lost your camera. Yeah, we've got your icon still up there.
You can hear me though, can you?
I can still hear you. Yeah.
Let me see if I can change that for you.
Awesome.
But so I play with they're based in Kettering, and that sort of percussion. Oh, there we go. Don't know what happened there. Percussion, bass, saxophone. That's instrumental. And then I've got a couple of guys that I've been playing with for a long time. the Brinley brothers, who played on my original EP, and we sort of gig together my stuff, but we do some jazz stuff on the side as well. So it's it's just nice to sort of keep it a few different things. It's not all the same.
Yeah, because we were chatting beforehand, and I can hear the jazz influence in your songs, of course. But as you were saying before, there's some songs where it's not so apparent, and there's some where it kind of creeps in. Would you say it's like a crossover kind of style?
Yeah, like it's completely unintentional if that's the case. Like
Mm.
you know, I guess I just try and write what comes out in a sense, and I've got a sort of there's some sort of jazz influence in my background, my piano playing, and my understanding of harmony and stuff, and so that it's inevitable. I think that it's going to creep out in my songwriting.
Yeah.
There were certainly some songs that I think in my head there's no sort of jazz influence there. It's pretty sort of straightforward. But there, I think that in a sense there's like the melting pot of all your influences, and like I didn't grow up listening to jazz. It was more sort of from sort of 18 onwards. So
Yeah.
before that, it was predominantly like the sort of pop and folk influence, and
Yeah.
I think when it's all sort of melted together, and then you start writing stuff, it comes out in different. I think maybe certain songs you can hear the jazz influence, and there might be certain songs that you hear the folk influence and stuff like that. So it's I can appreciate that, and there's certain songs like that it's more obvious than not that there's a jazz influence to what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that, and I can definitely hear the folk influence as well in like the storytelling and the way the songs are constructed, which I think is very 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 good songwriting. I really love it, and
I appreciate it.
It's nice to hear kind of well, I always love to hear piano as well because I'm a piano player myself, and it's always lovely to
Yeah, I think
have.
that's something that I kind of leaned into sort of intentionally when I first started writing and performing and singing songs, because for a long time I didn't sing and write. I was a keyboard player or a piano player. And when I first started doing things, I would go to open mic nights and do stuff, and it was really convenient to take a guitar down and do it that way because I play a bit of guitar. I'm not a great guitarist, but I play a bit, so it's easy to do that. So initially, all the stuff I did was sort of guitar based, and then I thought, well, I may as well play to my strength in that I'm a piano player, and let's sort of lean on that and make a sort of a point out of it. So sort of going forward from that point, I was like, this is piano heavy and intentionally so. And I think like you're right, there's not an abundance of piano singer-songwriters out there. You get some people who might do the odd song on the piano or something like that, but to be generally there the whole time, there's tenor penny acoustic guitarists, singer-songwriters, and there's a lot of great ones, and so it's easy to get probably lost in that. So if you can sort of stand out in any way, your instrument could be one of the ways that you do that. So.
Absolutely, I think so, and you're right. It is when you see a piano player playing in an open mic or a gig or a lineup, it really does stand out because it is like maybe 1 in 10 sometimes. As little as that, and I had a similar kind of journey really. I started doing the open mics, and I started lugging my piano around everywhere, and I had a massive big heavy piano when I first started. And I just thought, oh God, this is like really hard work. So yeah, I learnt guitar just to be able to play songs. I've never really wanted to be a guitar player, but it was just easier to play songs on guitar at open mics, and and I think a lot of people find that. And then gradually I've gone more back to about half and half, and piano kind of probably takes over as well, because like yourself, it was always my kind of strongest instrument. And I do like the fact that you do stand out when you go and play places if you play piano, because there's not too many around, and Do you ever play guitar live, or is it just piano now?
Uh, it depends what the gig is. If I know that I'm only playing 5 songs or something, then I'll probably just play piano, because I feel like it doesn't make much sense to be hopping up and down and I'll just sort of stay on there. So, but if I know that I've got a longer set, I'll probably bring my guitar. But more recently, I haven't got a lot of guitar songs really now.
Yeah.
So it's I tend not to. But going back to what you were saying about sort of lugging your keyboard around and stuff, like you're a fan of Ben Folds.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Apparently, before they sort of even became big, when they were just doing the circuit, they used to go around with an upright piano in the back of their van.
Wow. Yeah.
So every gig they'd go to, they'd have to get this upright piano out of the van, up on the stage, and he bash it about. He really does bash the pianos about.
He does.
But he sort of committed to the fact that it's like, yeah, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going to do. And he's willing to cart an upright piano about more than I am.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, for one thing, I've never had a car big enough to fit an upright piano in. I think. But that's brilliant. And yeah. I was going to ask about Ben Folds, because I'm pretty sure that there's an influence of his in your music, and there definitely is in mine as well. I spent many hours listening to him play when I first started listening to music, I think.
Yeah, big time really. I think as a piano player, sort of growing up, you kind of try and latch on to people who you think are cool or sound great. And as if you're a guitarist, there's kind of like plenty of those to do that. And there's not as many really cool piano players out there doing stuff.
True.
And so for me, when I started playing piano around about sort of 12 years old, something like that, I was looking for that. And for me, initially it was Bruce Hornsby was a big influence. So he had his song The Way It Is, but my dad had that album, and there's like piano solo in every other song, and he plays it in a way that was like sounded fantastic to me. But then I remember the first time I heard Ben Folds 5, I was like, wow, what are these guys doing? This sounds incredible. And it was all over the place. So yeah, they're a massive sort of influence on me, because there wasn't anyone else that I was an example of a really sort of cool and current sort of piano player that was playing kind of pop rock music type thing. That was kind of the main stuff I was sort of listening to at the time. So and I saw them play as Ben Folds 5, I think when I was 16 in Leicester, and then I've seen Ben Folds play a few times solo as well, because he's still producing fantastic music on his own.
Yeah, he really is. I was lucky enough to see him, I don't know when it was, maybe about 10 years ago, in Brixton, I think, Brixton Academy. Right. And yeah, it was amazing, a great show, and yeah, what an entertainer as well. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. He's someone who I was going to talk about this with my cover later on in the same way, but he's someone who is so recognizable in the way in the way he plays, the way he writes songs and his voice. There's something, he's really quite happy to almost be an anomaly, isn't he? And stand out there as, there's not really anyone quite like him.
Absolutely, because actually, like, a lot of his songs, you could describe them as quite weird for like a singer-songwriter to write. And I've often thought that they really do stand out for their individuality, really.
Yeah. I remember hearing him interviewed about something and saying that there's a point in his early music career where it dawned on him, or he realized that you could write lyrics just like you would talk to somebody. And like I've since gone back and sort of listened to his stuff and gone, oh yeah, because a lot of songwriters don't use this sort of language. He's just kind of talks some stuff he's saying. It's just sort of it's just kind of regular. He's not trying to be sort of super poetic, and it's to do with what he's talking about. But I thought that was really interesting. It was something that You're always trying to, as a songwriter, you're trying to you steal little bits from everybody. At least I do. I don't know if you're the same, but it's like you hear something and you hear the way that someone does things or the way that they construct things. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. I think I'll use that.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have done that. And did you find that then your lyrics became a little bit more conversational as well if you started doing it?
Not necessarily. I think that I wasn't afraid to be.
Yeah.
I do. I kind of have my sort of way of my lyrics. My songs take a long time to write. I don't write. I'm not someone who writes like a song every 3 days, or for me, it's maybe a song every 3 months.
Yeah.
And I live with them for a long time, and my lyrics come slowly, and I have my sort of way of doing things. And but like taking things from other people is like, oh well, I'm not afraid to try that because that works for that person, and I know that it's there's not a right or wrong way to do it. I've got a book that's like this big that's called Songwriters on Songwriting, and it's just it's really interesting. It's just full of really successful songwriters who talk about their process of writing songs, and everybody's is completely different.
Yeah.
And it just sort of goes to show that it's like, there isn't a right or wrong way to do it. And there's some people who spend a long time on songs, and there's some people who say, oh, if it doesn't come in that sort of moment, it's not going to be a great song, or it never gets finished. So it's sort of each to their own. But I think taking little bits of what other people and not being afraid to go, well, I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
And then see what happens. So like with Ben Folds things, like it's just using that as for me, I might, I'm not afraid now to go, well, let's just make this, say something, but it might seem boring. Often you might want to think that with songs that you're trying to be poetic or things, and often I do, think and try and do that. But there's, I'm more now open to going, well, if this line just seems pretty ordinary, there's nothing wrong with that. If it says what I want it to say, then it can say what I want it to say.
I love that, exactly. And that's what I always I do a little bit of like music mentoring and stuff like that. And if I ever do songwriting with people, I always say there is no rules, because like you say, there's 100 different ways, 1,000 different ways that you can do it. And everyone has to find their own, way that suits them, don't they?
Out of interest, Ellie, do you do much co-writing?
A little bit, yeah. I have done bits and pieces, but it's something I've started to do a little bit more of recently. Yeah.
How do you find it?
I found co-writing is a strange thing. It's something which I've always wanted to kind of crack, but never really seemed to be able to. I've been in some sessions which have, and I think this is the nature of it, that have gone nowhere, or some sessions which then you get something out of. But I think for me, I'm a little bit kind of like a very much a solo songwriter. So I think I find it difficult, to be honest, with co-writing. But it's something that I have had joy out of as well, so.
Right. And generally, do you take a long time to write songs, or are you someone who gets things done quite quickly?
I go through bursts, I would say. I'm someone that probably won't write a song for ages, and then all of a sudden maybe 2 or 3. But in terms of finishing them, yeah, I do take my time as well. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah, because in terms of co-writing, I've had a number of people say to me, you should co-write. It's really great. You should do it. Try it. But like, I'm kind of terrified to do it. And one of the reasons being that I take a long time to write my songs. So generally, I labour over them, and it's not something that sitting in a room with someone for 2 or 3 hours. It doesn't. I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to bring anything to the table in that scenario. I feel like I should try it. But
I would say why not? Yeah, it's always worth trying. one thing I've found over lockdown is I've started to do, obviously because everything's remote, that kind of gives you a bit more time, because you're kind of sending stuff to each other over email or whatever.
Right.
So I've been writing with someone where I've just been writing the piano parts, which actually has been quite interesting because I'm so channeled into writing the melody as well as the piano and all the chords structures and everything. But
Yeah.
this one I kind of like, I was like, oh, my job isn't to do the melody here or the lyrics really. I will probably help with the lyrics a little bit, but my job really is to do the music. And actually that was quite refreshing because whenever I've co-written before, it's always been like you say, sitting in a room with someone and you're trying to come up with stuff, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it just doesn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hadn't ever kind of broken it down where I've just written the music before. So yeah, that's been quite interesting. It might be the best way for me actually. Maybe I
Right.
think when I co-write, maybe that is the way. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
all
I
a bit
heard someone
unknown.
else talk about it recently as well, and she said that the first sort of 2 or 3 times she found it really difficult,
Yeah,
but now she's it's something she finds quite valuable and does a lot of. So it's maybe it's just something that it's getting used to, isn't it? It's something
yeah,
if you're so used to it for so many years, done it on your own in your own space and with the amount of time you need, suddenly it's going to take a bit of getting used to, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah, it is a completely different thing, and like you say, but yeah, I'm certainly trying to do more of it just to kind of just to give it a go really, and broaden my kind of output, I suppose,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But Chloe's saying here she loves Ben Folds. Chloe, I think you've met Chloe. She's my sister.
Yeah, yeah, we met at a gig in Cambridge, at
Yeah,
CU2. Yeah.
that's it. And actually, I was remembering that gig because I think I saw a few photos from it pop up on my Facebook thing, and that was I think that's where I met you, or maybe I met you at another gig before. I probably saw you play somewhere.
I don't know. We did. I think we played in Norwich together at the Birdcage.
Oh, that was it. Yeah,
I don't know which one was the first one because I think we tried to organise something even before that, which sort of
yeah.
didn't happen. And then we ended up doing these. I'm not sure which way around it was. It feels like quite a while ago.
Oh, yeah, that was it. I actually really love that Birdcage venue in Norwich. It was a
Yeah, yeah, it's really quaint, isn't it?
beautiful little venue, and I remember they had a chip shop opposite that they let you kind of go and get chips and bring it into the audience, bring it into the venue, which is quite quirky and
I don't
nice.
remember that bit.
But yeah, I'd like to go back there at some point. Actually, it was nice. And this comment saying, "So happy you started leaning more towards your piano playing. It's brilliant." So that's a
Nice.
lovely thing. So as it's 1.1 song, it's actually 1.2 songs really. Actually, I've just been thinking about that. But let's talk a little bit about the original song, which we're going to watch the video of and listen to. If you're listening on audio, you'll hear the audio. Life lessons. Tell us a bit about this song. How did it
Yeah,
come
well, it was
about?
sort of quite popular choice, really. I put it out on my Facebook page, and this sort of came out more than anything else. And it tends to be that way that I think this song, more than any other song of mine, seems to either resonate with people or it sticks with people. They come up to me after gigs and mention it, or they'll
Mm,
mention it to me later, or sometimes I get messages about it. And I think, in a sense, it's because normally in the gig, um, I lead into it by sort of explaining sort of what it was about. And I think maybe for some people, certainly people with children, it resonates. It was a song. I actually wrote it when at a time where I was sort of a stay-at-home dad for a couple of
mm,
years. And so my daughter she was around about probably 4 years old. And so we were spending a lot of time together just before she started primary school. And it was great, really. But I would find myself with these sort of opportunities in certain situations to think, oh, look, this is a great, opportunity for her to learn a valuable lesson here with something or other. And I would start telling her these this thing. And just with her being as young as she was, and probably because I'm her dad, she was like, not interested in, or certainly not listening really to what I was saying.
Yeah.
And so I sort of took it upon myself to thought, well, I could put some of these things in a song. I was looking for it. I think at the time I hadn't been writing my own stuff for very long, and my sort of natural go-to with songwriting was always quite sort of slow and somber and somewhat sort of depressive. So I was like, well, I need a sort of upbeat song to add into my set. So this could be the key to that. So that's kind of where it came from, and it's like, let's just put a few of these things that I think I'd like her to hold on to as she grows up, and maybe look back on. And maybe if I put them in a song, she might remember them better than if I just tell her, on any given day. So that was kind of the reason behind it. And yeah, it seems to sort of resonate with people. And I have some nice sort of little messages, or people saying how they've used. I had a guy who's a teacher, a primary school teacher, who said that he plays it to his class every year.
Oh wow!
This is it's really quite nice to hear those sorts of things, that the people have kind of taken something that you made for yourself and for your family, and it becomes part of someone else's story as well. I had another on the same song that someone commented on YouTube saying that they'd not heard it for a while and rediscovered it, and it brought back all these memories from when they were younger. So I think whether their parent had played it to them and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just nice to think that a song like mine, like that was sort of, it's kind of a bit of fun, but also it's a message to my daughter that it's become part of somebody else's story as well. So it's nice to get those messages.
Yeah, and there's we will play it very shortly. There's so many. It's so well structured. There's so many things in it. Did it take a while to collate that all together, or was it actually kind of thinking, oh, these are the kind of lessons I would like to give?
Well, yeah, like I said previously, like, for me, the songwriting takes a while. So it did come over, like there was a notepad that had lots of different things, and it was just me, a case of like writing down all these different things that maybe I'd want to say, and if there's a way of sort of a good way of linking them with other things. And so there's probably some that got left behind, and there's some that made it. So it's it was just a kind of, I guess, over time, it was like, I think these are the kind of things I want to say, and it kind of speaks for itself, really.
Yeah, well, I think it's a beautiful song, and the video is really, really nice. So let's have a listen to it. We'll sit back and listen, and anyone watching on YouTube and Facebook will be able to see the video as well.
Great.
Oh wow, man, that's so cool. I really love that. I really, really
That's
do.
cool. I couldn't hear the audio on that. I don't know if anyone else could.
Oh
It's
really? Oh,
yeah.
hopefully they could.
Well, I noticed that John Brindley says band sounds tight, so I imagine it looks like he heard it. John's actually
Yeah.
the bass player on the track.
Oh really? Oh great. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I've. It's a strange one. Yeah. Someone said they can't hear it, and some people said they could, which is quite
Um,
confusing. Yeah. I'm not sure why that would be the case, but
right, yeah, I can.
hopefully, hopefully some people did hear it. What we'll do then, we'll play it at the end of the show, um, and make sure that we can hear it next time.
No way.
Um,
How do you feel about listening to your own music?
It's what I tend to do with my music. It's something I tend not to. I tend to listen to it a lot when I'm recording it, obviously, and doing the mixes and stuff. And then I'll probably won't listen to it again for ages. I Once I've kind of got past that period, then I might not listen to it for ages. But then I'll come back and listen to it, and I can actually listen to it now. But when I first started, I was like, oh, I don't really like listening to it. But
Yeah, I can't listen to my own stuff. I just
really,
don't like it at all.
wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. I've heard people say like that before. I Yeah, it's strange. But yeah, I tend to listen to it later on. Yeah, I might go a year without listening to one of my
Right.
songs. Just
Yeah, I read something recently that I think it was an interview with the Kings of Leon, and
oh yeah,
the guy had said the main songwriter said that he doesn't like listening to his own stuff as well. He has a sort of hate relationship with his own music, and I kind of really understood where he was coming from when he said that. So it's kind of nice to know that
yeah.
I'm not the
It's
only person who thinks that it sounds, that, yeah, cringes when he listens to his own music.
exactly. And there's so many things about that song which I really love. Obviously, the life lessons is a real kind of important thing for any kids growing up. But I often feel that it, like you said earlier, I think it's something that parents maybe tell people over time, and it's really lovely there in the video where your daughter's kind of obviously growing up throughout the video, which I think is a beautiful kind of thing as well. But yeah, that kind of the song kind of says all the stuff you'd want to say all in one go, which is really, really, really interesting, I think.
Yeah, well, there's certainly points that I want her to um, grow up understanding or believing or trying to do.
Mm.
And I didn't write it thinking that this would necessarily be the same list for everybody else, but it's sort of nice to know that you know, that it is kind of somewhat universal and that other people relate as well. So yeah, it's like that. I think you create songs not always with the intention of like, oh, I'm going to perform it and hope it connects with the audience. Sometimes I write songs that I do that it's not my story, it's someone else's, and I'm trying to put it out there to connect with people who might hear it. But
Yeah,
this song was a song that wasn't about that. It was a song that I was writing for what I wanted to say to my child, and that connection seems to be a familiar connection, and that's why other people seem to connect to it.
yeah, absolutely. And I think there's some great lines in there which I always like to pick out two or three lines which I really like, and I think stand up for the truth, don't care too much what people think, and I think these are such important like lessons which sometimes people don't learn until much later in life. But if you can learn them a bit younger in life, it's only going to suit you well, I would say. And time is precious, and I think it was something along the lines of be careful who you give too much time to, and things like that, which again are like things that we all wish we'd probably learned when we were kids, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's these. It's the point of it was these are things that I've learned as an adult, and I wish I knew when I was younger, and I want you to know these things now.
Yeah.
But so it's that was the kind of the thing. I think that's my favorite sort of line of it, is the bit about time, and be careful where you spend it, and who you give it to.
Yeah, absolutely. That I think that's really, really, really important. And I love that piano solo in there as well. That's really, really, really fantastic.
Oh, cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
not something that I listen to very often, and yeah, it's one of those things. I think when you write and record things, you spend a long time, and when you hear them back, you always kind of think, oh, what if I did this or that? And it's nice that people appreciate it for what it is and don't listen to it in the same way that I listen to it. So
absolutely,
it's good.
absolutely. And actually, that's one of the questions I often ask is, and I think we've already probably covered it a little bit, but does the way people, we can probably broaden it to your other music as well. Does the way people kind of perceive your music, does it often surprise you? The different takes they may have on it.
It's sometimes it just surprises me that people like it. Sometimes it's as simple as that. It's that when a stranger comes up to me after the end of a gig and wants to talk to me about how much they liked it, for me that's a real big deal. That it's not a member of my family telling me, "Well done, Michael." It's just strangers saying, what you did connected with me in a way, and so that's really great to hear. Sometimes it surprises me which songs people love the most. Maybe a couple of my favorite of my songs, people tend not to talk about.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't talk about those, but they're like, oh, I like those songs the best. And it's sometimes the ones that I don't like as much that people, it connects with them. But it's, and I can appreciate, you get some of these artists who have been, when James Taylor has to play Fire and Rain again, and you think, I wonder how he feels about playing Fire and Rain at every gig, since 1960, whatever it is. I kind of appreciate the certain songs that I know people kind of want to hear if they come to see me.
Yeah.
Which often isn't very many people, but it's not always the song that I want to play.
Yeah.
But,
I very much understand that myself. Yeah, there's songs of mine which I always think they're probably not the best songs, but they often are the songs which people want to hear, and so you do end up playing them. And it's interesting what you say. Like James Taylor, he's definitely an influence of mine as well. And when you're playing songs, because it does for me, like sometimes I wonder, do I see the same things when I'm playing that song for the 100th time or the 500th time in my head when I'm playing it, as I did when I first wrote it, if you know what I mean? Do you feel like that? Does it change?
Yeah, I think it does change. I think it changes in different ways. I found that I play songs differently to how I did on the record. I think maybe because I don't listen to them, but
yeah,
when I listen back to a recording, I'm like, oh, I don't play it like that anymore.
yeah,
I don't sing that bit like that anymore. But I think that when you've had so much time from when you actually wrote the song to later on playing it, I feel there is a bit of a detachment from that. There was a song that I wrote. There's one song I wrote that was a really sort of personal song, and when I wrote it, it was quite emotional, and there was an emotional connection to that song when I wrote it. To the point of when I first performed it, I thought, I don't know if I'll potentially be able to get through the song. But after time, or now, it's like there isn't that same emotional connection to that anymore, because that was written about a certain thing at a certain time, for that thing. So that's when it came out for me. So that emotional connection isn't there. But when you perform that for someone who's hearing it for the first time, if that story or message connects with them in their moment and at that time for them, then it's valid and valuable, isn't it? Even if it's maybe not quite there for you anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, and yeah, you never know kind of what the effect that song will have on that person that's hearing it for the first time. I know my sister Chloe, she had quite a profound effect on her. Your music had quite a profound effect on her. I remember when we played the gig in CB2, and it just goes to show, doesn't it? That the power that music can have. And you mentioned before that that's kind of one of the more upbeat songs, and it really is actually. It's one of those songs which, and apologies again to the people that couldn't hear it, but we'll try and let you hear it at the end. It's one of those songs that it makes me feel good, but it also reminiscent as well, because of kind of like looking back, and it kind of does make you think of childhood as well, actually.
There's a sense of sort of nostalgia, especially with the video. I think there's that nostalgia of growing up and certain things like that. I think the video sort of goes, because I actually shot the video. Well, I put that video together a few years later because she was still quite young when I wrote it. So it was a few years after I'd released it. I thought, I think it was her birthday. I don't know if it was her 7th or 8th birthday, and I was like, I'm going to try and collate all this stuff together. But I've gone off track now. I can't remember what your question was.
Yeah, and actually, just to say, your daughter's called Peace.
That's correct? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really cool, and I think the song's lovely, and I also as I often do, I listen to kind of I went back and listened to a lot of your music that I'd not heard for a couple of years, I must admit, and then I kind of it got me thinking about when I'd seen you play it live, and I feel like although a lot of the other music is quite kind of somber, and which actually I love, I love that kind of music. There's something about the songs which it has kind of a deep effect on me. Like when I went back and listened to it today, I was like, it really makes me feel something, straight away, and that's a thing about songwriting, and my favourite songwriters that they do that, and I think that's something to be proud of, really.
I really appreciate you saying that, Elliot. That means a lot. I think I've often not been as happy with my recordings. Like my wife sometimes says that my recordings don't capture. When I play live, there's a different essence to when things are put down, and I don't often feel or know if that's captured in the recordings. So I appreciate you saying that you do feel that when you listen back to them.
Yeah, I absolutely, and I've had the privilege to hear them live as well, obviously, and they're powerful songs, and if anyone actually would like to hear more of them, your website's michaelkeithson.co.uk, and there's a whole like is that an old EP? Is that an EP where they're on there, or is it just kind of?
Well, what I did is I released an EP originally. The first thing that I released that has live lessons, and I think there were 6 songs on that. Yeah. And then after that, I've, rather than put anything together as a piece of work, I've recorded a song and released it, and then I wrote and recorded another song and I released it. So then there's another 4 or 5 sort of singles that just got released. So they're on the website as well, but it's I didn't sort of put them into an EP, but the first thing I released was an EP.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. And I certainly enjoyed listening to them again. This is something we will talk about the cover very shortly. This is something that I ask everyone, really. When you write, do you find that you write more in the morning? Do you write during the day, or are you kind of an evening writer? I would say I'm more of an evening writer, or can it be any time for you?
I think it can be any time. I think that it tends not to be in the morning. I'm not really a morning person.
No, same.
So it tends not to be in the morning. But I think the rest of it can be any time. Often I find, because of the way I tend to write, often I'll write lyrics first, or start with lyrics for like a verse and a chorus
Yeah.
before I go to the to get the music. It's quite common for my songs. Not all this way, but I might try and write a verse and a chorus, lyrics, and then take it to the music and try and work out my melody and harmony. And then the following verses, or tidying up the verses, or the pre-chorus, or the bridge, that will come often as I'm sitting in front of the TV. I'll have my pad and I'll just be writing ideas down and trying to just move things about, and that slowly comes. So often the evening is a time where I'll kind of my lyrics will that, but also my lyrics, like I'm sure you appreciate this as well, is that you might have, you know, a lot of the song finished and you've got like one line that's just not quite right, or there's something like that, and that can come to you any time of the day. Like I've been in the car where I've had to pull over and just to make a note, because I know that I'd forget it if I didn't write it down. Just that I thought, all right, that's the bit that I needed to fill that gap. So there's certain aspects that come any time of the day for me, but I don't think there's a set way. Like I don't sort of go, oh, I only tend to do this or that. And it could be a case that if I've got, you know, a spare half an hour to sit at the piano, then something comes out, and whatever time that might be.
Yeah. No, that's the same for me, really. Like, it's crazy sometimes how that one line can elude you for so long, and then all of a sudden it will just pop up out of nowhere, and you're like, right, I think I'm finished. You know, I think we're done. And yeah, I've often been in the car actually, and quickly pulled over and got my phone, and like a melody idea has come into my head for a bridge or something. And again, that bridge could have been for a song that's been sitting around for like 2 years, and it just has got a chorus and a couple of verses or something, and it just hasn't been finished. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, maybe that would work with that. I think that's the unknown element of songwriting is something you can't, it's hard to explain to people, but that's how it is sometimes.
I feel you.
Which is great. And so Julian says every song tells a story. Yes, I agree. And so as we're kind of pushing on, this hour always goes so fast. We're going to just talk about the cover. We can't play the cover because of YouTube copyright laws, and I hope that wasn't what happened with the song before, but hopefully not. But when you sent me this cover, you told me that it's quite a rare Randy Newman song, and strangely enough, I had heard it because someone had played it to me. I don't know when, and I don't know where, but I'd heard it, and it's such a beautiful song. Tell us about it, a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, it's rare in that it was he's never released it on an album or released it as a single. He does a lot of writing for films and television as well as his own stuff. And there's an American detective TV show called Monk that ran a few years ago, and he did the music for that. And for the finale of the last series, he wrote this beautiful little song that just plays at the end of the episode, but then hasn't been released on anything. And so the sort of versions of it on, I think, YouTube that someone's must have taken off the TV. But it's this beautiful sort of just Randy Newman, song. Randy Newman, like when I mentioned Ben Folds earlier and saying that how sort of kind of unique he is. I think Randy Newman is one of the most, like, every aspect of what he does is so recognizable. The way he plays the piano, there isn't really anyone who plays it quite like him. I could hear, a few bars of him playing and be like, that's Randy Newman.
Absolutely.
But his composition is the same. The types of chords he uses, the the intonation, just the harmony he uses, it's him. You can hear it. Like there's certain things, like he does all the Toy Story music for all the Toy Story films, and there's certain bits that you'll notice. Like I put one of his other songs on, and my wife said, "Is this from Toy Story?" And it's because he uses the same type of chords and the phrasing and things. So there's his piano playing, his composition, his lyrics, the way he writes his lyrics. There's not really anybody quite like him. He often writes from this sort of unreliable third person character, and his voice is really distinctive. Every aspect of those things you could hear, and you could notify that it's Randy Newman. And this song is this perfect little capsule of what he is, in my opinion, and it's beautiful. And I think on the back of hearing this song, I wrote a song of my own that was kind of intentionally, I'm going to try and write a pretty little ode to Randy Newman type song, which is the last track on my EP. It's called All at Once. I just think this song is beautiful, and he's written a few songs that are kind of similar in this vein, but I think this is one of my favorites of his.
I think it's a beautiful song, and I've just put the link up in the comments, obviously because we can't unfortunately play it, but people should definitely go and listen to that. People are probably aware of Randy Newman, like you say, through the Toy Story kind of soundtrack, and I completely agree about the piano playing, the voice, like it's just so distinctive. And this song, I haven't seen the TV show, but now you've recommended it to me, I'm probably going to go and watch it. It kind of sounded like, I don't know, is it at the end of the series or something? It sounded like one of those kind of
it's at the end. It's the end of the final episode of all, like, I don't know, there's 5 seasons or something, and it's the final episode. And because the idea is that this guy who's the main character, he's a bit quirky and a bit odd and a bit strange, but he's kind of lovable at the same time. And at the end, when he leaves, it's the idea of like, there's a sort of repeat in there that says, "I think you're going to miss me when I'm gone." And it's not just about this character. I think it can be applied to other things. It's definitely worth a listen if you've not heard it. And I imagine there's probably some Randy Newman fans who probably haven't heard it just because it's not something that he's released. But it's like I struggled when you said sort of pick a cover. I could have, like, there's so many different artists and things that have influenced me and the songs that I love, and I didn't know where to start really, but I thought that Randy Newman has an influence on what I do as a singer-songwriter, and I think he's sort of a genius at what he does, and so that's why I went for that. But there's other songs that he released an album, I want to say last year, but maybe it was 2019 because 2020 seems to like
just slipped away.
So and there's a song on that called She Chose Me, which is in the same sort of vein as this, and it's beautiful. And he writes a lot of these sort of there's a song Feels Like Home that he wrote, which someone else I think made, but a lot of people cover his songs. There's a famous another person I think has probably got a more famous version of his song Feels Like Home, but he writes these perfect little love songs that are kind of a little bit quirky, because he writes some sort of funny sort of, you listen to stuff like Rednecks and stuff like that, which is they're sort of comedy songs almost.
Yeah.
Then he'll have these little beautiful gems in the midst of those, of these beautifully crafted sort of piano ballad, poignant, beautifully written songs that everybody should hear, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I certainly found it very emotive, that song, and I think it's a great choice actually because it does fit in very well with the style of your music as well. So I think it's a great choice, and people should definitely go and listen to it if they can. I've put the link up there in the comments and also at the bottom of the screen here. So yes, you should
There
be
is
able to.
actually a version of I did when this came out.
Mm,
I learnt it and I did do a few. I did play it a few times, and I did a video of it, and it's actually my most watched video on YouTube, just because I think there isn't many versions of this song to be heard.
yeah, yeah,
I had so many people say to me, "Can you send me the chords to this song? Can you send me the chords?" So I had these. There's like if you find my video of it, look in the comments. There's just about 30
yeah.
people saying, "Oh yes, send me the chords as well."
Wow, wow, that's
So
really interesting. Yeah, because
yeah,
people tend to cover songs which people know, don't they? But I suppose when you cover a song that maybe people haven't even discovered themselves yet,
yeah.
that's another really interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
And people like Randy Newman are like, you can get songbooks of his that will tell
Mm,
you how to play the piano bits for "You've Got a Friend" and all that
yeah.
stuff. And so there isn't the sheet music for this. So yeah,
Yeah, man. And
it's ended up being my most popular video,
that's so
not my
cool,
best video.
actually. Well, people can go and check that out as well. And when you record, we'll wrap this up very shortly actually because we're
Sure.
approaching the time when the audio podcast kind of zones out a bit. But when you record, is that because I've listened to the recordings? Obviously, is that on a grand piano or an upright piano?
Well, it's so the EP that I released, so that first EP with those 6 tracks on, was done on a grand piano. So I went
Mm,
to the studio to do that, um, and but the following ones were all done on my Nord keyboard.
yeah,
They what I realised, I think, going back to me not liking listening to my own music, I think when I first recorded that first EP, I had this idea in my head that I'd go to the studio and the engineer would put this magic sprinkles on it, and I'd get it back, and it kind of wouldn't be me. It wouldn't be me singing. It wouldn't be me playing the piano.
yeah,
It wouldn't be my songs. I got them back and listened to it and was a bit like, oh, it's just still sounds like me. Um, and so the all the next recordings I did, I, rather than sort of spend a load of money and go into a studio for a short period of time, I did it all myself over a longer period of time. So I spent more time trying to get things right, get the
yeah.
sounds I wanted, and did most of the work myself, and then got it paid to get it mixed and mastered. So yeah, the last sort of 4 or 5 tracks I've released were all recorded in my sort of home studio, and then well, the last one I sort of mixed it myself, but the previous ones I've got someone else to mix it that way. But like in terms of piano, like the Nord's got some really great sort of samples on it. My song
Yeah.
Tokyo I've got like a kind of nice, slightly bashed upright piano type sound to that, and it's
Oh
really nice.
man. Yeah, actually, I'm looking at the moment for um, I'm looking for kind of a plugin actually, which gives really good upright pianos because I'm using Logic and that's got some great grand pianos, but I really want like just exactly as you said, like a bit of a bashed up upright that might have been sitting in a studio for a while. So I'm
Yeah,
kind of looking for something like that at the moment myself.
well, it depends because there's a company called Spitfire Audio, and
Okay, yeah,
they have a lot of plugins. There's some that the uprights are really, really nice and really affordable, but they're more sort of, you know, like felt uprights where you can get, like, you put the felt down.
Yeah.
It's got that sort of sound to it, so it's a bit more. It's got a different, unique sound, but it might be worth checking out Spitfire Audio. They do have some other sort of bigger ones as well, but they're a bit more expensive.
That's really cool. That's really great info, actually, because I might check that out.
Sure.
Definitely. Right, we've got one more comment, and then I will play the video. I think I've worked out what the problem was before. If anyone couldn't hear the audio, I think it was something that I hadn't clicked properly. So as we're all kind of learning getting our way through learning how all this technology works during lockdown, I seem to learn something new every day, which is a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
And one more comment. Really enjoyed this tonight. I remember seeing you play at CB2, Michael, and was blown away by your music, especially life lessons. Well, that's a lovely thing.
That's nice. Thanks, Claire, for that.
So I just want to say first and foremost, thanks so much for coming on. It's really good to catch up again, and I hope that I'll be able to see you play live again at some point in the future. Maybe do a gig again at some point whenever gigs happen. I'm actually thinking, because it's been so long, I haven't put on a gig or promoted a gig for ages, really. So I thought maybe I'll do one more gig where I kind of get a few people along and we play.
Yeah,
so
maybe it's time. Yeah.
It could be time, I think.
No, I've really enjoyed sitting and chatting. So thanks for having me on, Elliot.
No worries, man. So what we're going to do now, we're going to play out the show with your song Life Lessons, because we didn't quite get to hear it before properly, which is a terrible shame because it's a beautiful song. So hopefully this will go. Yeah, please, if anyone has a comment where you can't hear the audio, write it in the box, but to be fair, I wouldn't know what to do now, because I've tried everything. So hopefully this works. And thanks, Michael, and come back again sometime soon.
Yeah, will do. My pleasure, mate.
Closely, little one.
There's
some things I wish I'd known when I was young. Settle in now, pull up the pews. I impart my life lessons to you. A funny thing that is the human race. You might discover that it's hard to find your place. Well, it's okay to fall, and you should dare to make mistakes, for you'll learn and grow, and time will heal the heartache. Hold your head high, reach for the sky. Don't sweat the small stuff, you'll always get by. Give love and you'll be loved. Go follow your dreams, love, and you'll be okay. There's a few more things I wanted to say. You should try new food, stand up for truth. Work hard at what you love and see it through. I hope you dare to be different. Know yourself and be proud. Don't care too much what people think and live out loud. Keep asking questions. Do things that scare you. Time is precious. How you'll invest it and who you give it to. Keep your heart young.